The great hall of Viridian Prime Station floated in the darkness of space between three stars. Inside, representatives from 53 different species sat in a massive circular chamber. Some were tall and covered in scales. Others glowed with soft light. A few looked like walking trees. And in one small chair sat Ambassador Hyunwoo from Earth. Hyunwoo was not impressive to look at. He was middle-aged with gray hair at his temples. He wore simple clothes and smiled often. Next to the massive Velkarn warriors or the beautiful Luminari scholars, humans seemed plain and weak. That was exactly what Hyunwoo wanted everyone to think. Today the council was angry. The Torvan Confederacy had invaded 3 peaceful systems. The Torvans were large reptilian creatures with sharp teeth and aggressive natures. Their leader, Warlord Krazik, had sent his armies to take over planets that could not defend themselves. The council members shouted and argued. Some wanted to send warships, others feared starting a bigger war. The Torvans were powerful and well-armed. Most species were scared to fight them directly. Hyunwoo raised his hand slowly. The chamber grew quiet. Everyone knew humans were new to galactic politics, only joining the council 2 years ago. What could they possibly offer? Friends, Hyunwoo began with his gentle voice. War only brings more suffering. I propose we try a different path. Let us stop trading with the Torvans until they leave the systems they invaded. At the same time, let us send food and medicine to the people who are suffering. This shows we care about peace, not revenge. Some council members nodded. It sounded reasonable and kind. Others looked doubtful. Would economic pressure really work against someone as brutal as Krazik? The Torvan representative, a scarred general named Vorkath, laughed loudly. Humans, he sneered. Always so soft. Always talking about feelings. We do not fear your little trade embargo. We are strong enough to stand alone. Hyunwoo smiled politely. Perhaps you are right. But would it hurt to at least discuss the matter? Let us meet privately and see if we can find common ground. Vorkath agreed, though he clearly thought it was a waste of time. The council approved Hyunwoo's plan. Many delegates came to shake his hand afterward, praising his peaceful approach. The humans, they thought, were idealistic but harmless. They meant well even if they did not understand how the real galaxy worked. What none of them knew was that while Hyunwoo smiled and shook hands in the council chamber, other humans were already at work, far away in Torvan space. A ship called the Silent Horizon drifted like a ghost. Captain Daejung stood on the bridge, watching his screens carefully. The ship was small and painted black. It used special technology that bent light and sensor waves around it. To anyone looking, there was nothing there but empty space. Target the military communication hub on the 3rd moon, Daejung said quietly to his crew. I want every message they send recorded and analyzed. His officers worked in silence. They had been mapping Torvan territory for months now. They knew where every weapons factory was located. They knew which supply routes the military used. They knew which generals were loyal to Krazik and which ones were secretly unhappy. The Torvans never saw them. They never even knew humans were watching. Back on Earth, in a quiet office building that looked like it belonged to a shipping company, Ji-Won sat at her desk surrounded by computer screens. She was young with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her official title was trade analyst. Her real job was much more interesting. Ji-Won was reading reports from human traders working in Torvan territory. These traders sold goods and made friends with local Torvans. They learned about problems in different colonies. They heard complaints about the government. They found out which officials could be bribed and which ones had secrets they wanted to hide. One report caught her attention. A Torvan colony on the outer edge of their territory was angry because the central government had cut their funding. The colony governor was publicly complaining about being ignored. Ji-Won smiled and began typing. Within hours, that complaint would be amplified through carefully managed social networks. Human traders would offer the colony special deals on supplies, making them less dependent on their own government. Rumors would spread about other colonies having the same problems. None of it would be traced back to Earth. It would all look like natural unrest. Sent a coded message to 3 human operatives living undercover in Torvan cities. They worked normal jobs, had Torvan friends, and no one suspected they were spies. They would start spreading carefully chosen bits of misinformation. Nothing big, just small lies that would make Torvans doubt their own government. Ji-Won leaned back in her chair. The council thought Hyunwoo was trying to negotiate peace. What he was really doing was buying time. Every day the Torvins spent talking was another day for people like her and Captain Dae-jung to tighten the trap. A message appeared on her screen from Hyun-woo. It was short. They agreed to negotiate. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 meant increasing economic pressure while making it look accidental. Human companies would suddenly have delays in shipping goods to Torvin space. Nothing obvious, just small problems that added up. Prices would slowly rise. Supply chains would mysteriously break down, and all the while Hyun-woo would sit across the negotiating table from Torvin officials, looking concerned and helpful. He would suggest solutions that seemed reasonable but actually made things worse. He would offer aid that came with invisible strings attached. This was how humans did diplomacy. They did not march in with armies. They did not make threats. They smiled and shook hands and slowly, carefully, wrapped their fingers around their target's throat. That night, Counselor Thexral from the Velkarn delegation sat in his quarters thinking. He was old and experienced. He had been a diplomat for 40 years. Something about the humans bothered him, though he could not say exactly what. They were too helpful, too friendly, too willing to get involved in situations that did not concern them. And yet, he could not point to anything wrong they had actually done. They had broken no laws, made no threats. They just helped. Thexral decided he was being paranoid. Humans were new to galactic society. They were probably just eager to prove themselves. Still, he made a note to watch them more carefully. If he had known that his private thoughts were being monitored by human intelligence, that his every action was being analyzed and filed away, he might have been less comfortable. But Thexral, like everyone else in the galaxy, did not yet understand what humanity really was. They were predators, the most dangerous kind, the kind that made their prey feel safe right up until the moment they struck. They had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill everything else. They had survived by being smarter, more patient, and more ruthless than anything they faced. Now they were in space, and the galaxy was full of new prey. Species that had never learned to recognize a hunter's smile. Species that thought diplomacy meant compromise and cooperation. The humans knew better. For them, diplomacy was just another form of warfare, and they were very, very good at it. The trap was set. Now all they had to do was wait for the Torvins to walk into it. 6 months had passed since Hyun-woo first proposed his peace plan. In that time, he had become one of the most respected voices in the Galactic Council. Other ambassadors sought his advice. Smaller species asked him to mediate their disputes. Even the proud Luminari, who rarely listened to anyone, paid attention when he spoke. Hyun-woo was always calm and reasonable. He never raised his voice. He never made threats. When conflicts arose, he found middle ground that made everyone feel heard. The galaxy was starting to believe that humans truly cared about peace. But for the Torvin Confederacy, things were not going well. The trade embargo was hurting them more than anyone expected. Ships that used to bring goods to Torvin worlds were now going elsewhere. Prices were rising. People were complaining about shortages. Warlord Krasik blamed the Council's sanctions. He gave angry speeches about how the weak species were trying to destroy Torvin's strength. But privately, he was worried. His advisors were telling him the economy was in trouble. What Krasik did not know was that the problems went much deeper than a simple embargo. Human operatives had spent months corrupting his supply networks. A shipment of military equipment would be delayed by paperwork errors. A cargo ship would take a longer route because of false reports about pirates. Food deliveries would spoil because of refrigeration malfunctions that seemed like accidents. Nothing was obvious. Nothing could be proven. But everything was falling apart slowly. On the silent horizon, Captain Dae-jung watched as his crew intercepted another set of Torvin military communications. They had been monitoring the Confederacy's networks for months now. The picture they were building was detailed and damning. The generals are starting to turn on each other, his intelligence officer reported. 3 different factions are forming. They all blame each other for the supply problems. Dae-jung nodded. Good. Make sure those communications accidentally get leaked to the right people. Let them think there are traitors in their own ranks. The officer smiled. It was a cold smile. Already done, sir. Meanwhile, 3 Torvin colony governors were having a secret meeting. They were angry and frustrated. The central government was demanding more taxes but providing less support. Their people were suffering while Krasik and his inner circle lived in luxury. What they did not realize was that much of their anger had been carefully planted. Human traders had been whispering in their ears for months, showing them records of government spending, comparing their treatment to that of other colonies, suggesting that perhaps the central government did not care about them. One of the governors, a woman named Skelvik, spoke quietly. "We cannot continue like this. Our people are losing faith in the Confederacy." Another governor agreed. "But what can we do? Krezik controls the military." The third governor, an old veteran named Thorax, looked at them both. "Perhaps we do not need to fight. Perhaps we just need to stop cooperating. If enough colonies refuse to send taxes or resources, what can the central government do?" It was a seed of rebellion, and it had been planted by human hands, though none of them knew it. Back on Viridian Prime, Hyunwoo was having lunch with Counselor Thexral. The old Velkarn diplomat had requested the meeting, saying he wanted to discuss trade routes. But Hyunwoo suspected the real reason was something else. They sat in a quiet restaurant overlooking the stars. Thexral ate slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Ambassador Hyunwoo, I have been thinking about something that troubles me." "Please share your concerns," Hyunwoo said warmly. "That is what friends are for." Thexral looked at him. "In the past year, humanity has become very influential in galactic affairs. You mediate disputes. You facilitate trade. You provide intelligence and security services to many species, and all of this is done with great generosity. We are simply trying to be good neighbors," Hyunwoo replied. "Yes," Thexral said slowly, "but I have noticed something. Every species you help becomes dependent on you. They rely on human shipping, human intelligence, human mediation, and once that dependency forms, it is very difficult to break." Hyunwoo's smile never wavered. "Counselor, are you suggesting we have ulterior motives?" "I am simply observing a pattern," Thexral said carefully. "And as someone who has studied power for many years, I recognize when it is being accumulated quietly." Hyunwoo put down his fork and looked at Thexral with genuine concern in his eyes. "My friend, I worry that you may be suffering from diplomatic paranoia. It is a common problem in our profession. We see patterns and conspiracies where none exist." He reached across the table and patted Thexral's hand. "You have been working too hard. Perhaps you should take a vacation. Visit one of the resort worlds. Rest your mind." Thexral felt a wave of embarrassment. Hyunwoo was right. He was seeing shadows where there was only light. The humans had been nothing but helpful. Why was he looking for hidden meanings? "You may be right," Thexral admitted. "Forgive me for troubling you with my concerns." "There is nothing to forgive," Hyunwoo said warmly. "I value our friendship too much to take offense." They finished their lunch talking about lighter topics. Thexral left feeling foolish for doubting the humans. Hyunwoo had been so understanding, so kind. As soon as Thexral was gone, Hyunwoo sent a coded message to Jiwon on Earth. The message was simple. "Thexral is suspicious. Monitor him closely. Find leverage if needed." Jiwon received the message and immediately pulled up everything human intelligence had on the Velkarn counselor: his family, his finances, his private communications, his medical records. Within an hour, she had identified 3 pieces of information that could be used to control him if necessary. She hoped it would not come to that. Blackmail was messy, but if Thexral became a real problem, they would do what was necessary. A week later, Hyunwoo made his next move. He requested a private meeting with the Torvan delegation. He came with a proposal that seemed generous. If the Torvans would withdraw from just one of the 3 occupied systems, humanity would convince the Council to lift the embargo and provide economic aid. The Torvan representatives were suspicious at first. Why would humans help them? But Hyunwoo explained that humanity believed in redemption and second chances. One system's freedom was better than none. It would be a gesture of good faith. What the Torvans did not know was that Captain Daijung's intelligence team had already identified which system was the least valuable. It had poor resources and was difficult to defend. Withdrawing from it cost the Torvans almost nothing, but accepting the deal would set a precedent. It would show that economic pressure worked. It would make the Torvans look weak, and it would put them in debt to humanity. Warlord Krezik did not want to accept. But his economy was failing. His colonies were restless. His generals were fighting among themselves. He needed relief, and the humans were offering it. He agreed to the deal. The galaxy celebrated. Ambassador Hyunwoo had achieved what seemed impossible. He had convinced an aggressive military power to give up conquered territory through nothing but diplomacy. The council praised him. Other species wanted to learn from humanity's peaceful methods. But in a secure facility on Earth, Ji-won and her team were already planning the next phase. The Torvins had taken the bait. Now it was time to pull the hook deeper. The galaxy thought humanity was teaching them about peace. What they were really learning was how to die without realizing they were being killed. Part 3. 2 years after humanity joined the Galactic Council, the Torvin Confederacy died. It did not die quickly in a dramatic battle. It died slowly, piece by piece, like a body rotting from the inside. Warlord Krasik was giving a speech to his generals when the first shot rang out. One of his own officers, a veteran commander named Grolvix, had pulled a weapon and fired. Krasik fell, his blood spreading across the marble floor of his palace. Grolvix claimed he was saving the Confederacy from a weak leader. Within hours, 3 other generals declared themselves the rightful ruler. The military split into factions. Ships that had once protected Torvin space now turned their weapons on each other. The 3 occupied systems immediately declared independence. The Galactic Council recognized them within days. Ambassador Hyunwoo personally delivered aid supplies and peacekeepers to help stabilize the new governments. The remaining Torvin territories fractured. Colony governors stopped taking orders from anyone. Some formed alliances with neighboring systems. Others tried to stand alone. A few descended into chaos and violence. The galaxy watched in shock. How had such a powerful civilization collapsed so completely? Experts debated the causes. Some said it was the sanctions. Others blamed internal corruption. A few suggested that the Torvin culture had always been unstable. No one suspected the truth. No one connected the supply failures to human sabotage. No one traced the leaked communications to human intelligence operations. No one realized that every crack in Torvin society had been carefully widened by human hands. Hyunwoo stood before the council and spoke with tears in his eyes. This tragedy shows us why we must always choose peace over violence. The Torvin Confederacy destroyed itself through aggression and mistrust. Let us honor their memory by being better. The council gave him a standing ovation. Hyunwoo had been right all along. Peace and patience had triumphed. The humans had shown them a better way, but Councillor Thexral was not applauding. He sat in his seat, his old eyes narrowed in thought. Something about this entire situation felt wrong. The collapse had been too complete, too sudden. Strong civilizations did not just fall apart like that. He decided to investigate quietly. Using his own resources and contacts, he began searching for answers. It took months of careful work, but eventually he found something. A Velkarn intelligence ship had discovered wreckage from a Torvin military satellite. The data core was damaged, but their technicians managed to recover fragments of information. What they found made Thexral's blood run cold. The satellite had been intercepting and recording transmissions. Most were normal Torvin communications, but mixed in were other signals, encrypted messages in an unknown language, sent to coordinates in space controlled by humanity. Thexral assembled a team of the best code breakers in Velkarn space. They worked in secret for 3 months, slowly piecing together fragments of the mysterious messages. When they finally broke the encryption, what they read horrified them. The messages were intelligence reports, detailed analyses of Torvin military capabilities, economic vulnerability assessments, psychological profiles of key leaders, strategic plans for undermining government authority. And the dates on the messages went back years. Some were from before humanity had even joined the Galactic Council. The humans had been hunting the Torvins long before anyone knew. Thexral felt sick. He had suspected something was wrong, but this was beyond his worst fears. The humans had not negotiated peace. They had systematically destroyed an entire civilization and made it look like suicide. But if they had done this to the Torvins, what else had they done? Thexral began looking at other species, searching for similar patterns. What he discovered was even more disturbing. Every species that had significant contact with humanity showed signs of subtle manipulation. The Luminary Research Institutes now depended on human funding and could not function without it. The Kaldorian Defense Network used human technology that only humans could maintain. Even peaceful species like the Zerathi found their economies deeply connected to human trade. The humans had not just helped these species. They had made themselves essential. And once you were dependent on someone, you could not afford to oppose them. Thexrel knew he had to act. He called a secret meeting with 5 other senior council members, species representatives he trusted completely. They gathered in a secure room protected from surveillance, or so they thought. What they did not know was that human intelligence had identified this meeting the moment it was scheduled. Ji-Wan sat in her office on Earth, watching a live feed from a microscopic camera one of the council members unknowingly carried. She listened as Thexrel presented his evidence. The other council members reacted with shock and anger. Some wanted to immediately confront humanity. Others argued for more investigation. One elderly diplomat suggested they were jumping to conclusions. Thexrel argued that they needed to act carefully. If what I suspect is true, then we are already in their trap. We need to understand how deep it goes before we make any moves. They agreed to expand the investigation. Each would quietly examine human influence in their own spheres. They would meet again in 1 month to share findings. Ji-Wan immediately sent a coded message to Hyun-Woo. They know, not everything but enough. Recommend accelerating timeline. Hyun-Woo read the message and smiled. This was earlier than he had hoped, but not unexpected. Thexrel was intelligent and persistent. It was actually impressive that it had taken him this long. He sent back a simple reply. Understood. Prepare for full disclosure. It is time. Over the next few weeks, the investigating council members made alarming discoveries. Human influence was everywhere. It was in their communication networks, their financial systems, their security infrastructure. Even their food supply chains had human involvement. Every time they tried to find an area free of human influence, they discovered it was connected to something that was. It was like trying to remove a single thread from a tapestry, only to find that pulling it would unravel everything. One council member, a luminary scholar named Velshara, had a breakdown when she realized that her entire species' scientific advancement for the past decade had been carefully guided by human advisors. They had not stolen knowledge. They had simply made sure that luminary research always complemented human interests. When the group met again, the mood was grim. Thexrel looked at each of them. We need to call an emergency council session. Humanity must answer for what they have done. But what have they done? Asked one delegate quietly. They have broken no laws, made no direct threats. Everything they did was technically legal. They destroyed the Torvan Confederacy, Thexrel said firmly. Can we prove that? Or will it look like we are making wild accusations against the species that has helped us most? The room fell silent. That was the terrible genius of what humanity had done. They had made themselves look like heroes. Accusing them would make the accusers look paranoid or ungrateful. But Thexrel was determined. Then we will present our evidence and let the full council decide. If humanity is innocent, they will have nothing to hide. He scheduled an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The invitation was sent to all members, including Ambassador Hyun-Woo. The stated reason was to discuss matters of galactic security. Hyun-Woo accepted the invitation immediately. He knew exactly what the meeting would be about. He had been preparing for this moment for years. As he prepared his response, he thought about the path that had brought him here. Humanity had not wanted to conquer the galaxy. They had not wanted to become villains, but they had learned hard lessons from their own history. Peace without power was just weakness waiting to be exploited. Cooperation without control was just chaos waiting to happen. If humanity was going to survive in a galaxy full of potential threats, they needed to be the apex predator. And now it was time to show the galaxy what an apex predator really looked like. The emergency council session took place in a chamber deep within Viridian Prime Station. No recording devices were allowed. No staff members waited outside. Just the senior ambassadors from each major species, sitting in a circle with Counselor Thexrel standing at the center. Ambassador Hyun-Woo sat calmly, his hands folded in his lap. His expression was pleasant and attentive, as if he was attending a normal meeting about trade regulations. Thexrel began speaking. His voice was steady, but everyone could hear the anger beneath it. He showed them the intercepted transmissions. He explained the timeline. He presented analysis after analysis, each one showing how humanity had systematically infiltrated, manipulated, and controlled every species they encountered. The Torvan Confederacy didn't collapse on its own, he said. It was destroyed, deliberately, carefully. Over 3 years, humanity corrupted their supply chains, turned their colonies against them, weakened their military, and amplified every internal problem until the entire structure fell apart. He turned to face the other delegates. And it wasn't just the Torvans. Look at yourselves. How many of you depend on human technology? How many of your economies would crash if human traders stopped working with you? How many of your young people now prefer human entertainment over your own culture? The chamber was silent. Delegates looked at each other uncomfortably. They knew he was right. When had humanity become so central to everything? They made us dependent, Thexrel continued. Every friendship was a trap. Every gift came with invisible strings. We thought they were our allies. But we were never allies. We were prey, he pointed at Hyunwoo. And you. You sat there smiling while your species hunted us. You called us friends while planning our subjugation. I trusted you. We all trusted you. What do you have to say for yourself? Hyunwoo stood slowly. His warm smile was gone. In its place was something different. Not cruel exactly. More like the expression of someone who had been wearing a mask for too long and was relieved to finally take it off. You're asking the wrong question, Thexral, he said quietly. You want to know if we manipulated you. The real question is, what makes you think we ever stopped? The words hung in the air like poison. Several delegates gasped. Others leaned forward trying to understand what Hyunwoo meant. Let me explain something about humans, Hyunwoo continued, his voice still calm but now carrying a weight it never had before. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Predators, disease, weather, other humans. For millions of years, survival meant being better at the game than everything else trying to eat us. He walked slowly around the circle as he spoke. We learned to read body language to know when someone was lying. We developed complex social structures to build alliances. We created language that could convince others to help us. We didn't just adapt to our environment. We learned to manipulate it. And then, he said, stopping in front of Thexrel, we met you, all of you. Species from peaceful worlds where resources were plentiful and predators were rare. You never needed to develop the skills we have. You're not weak. You're just innocent. A luminary delegate glowed brighter with agitation. You're saying you manipulated us because you could? Because it's in your nature? I'm saying we never stopped being predators, Hyunwoo replied. We just learned to hunt without triggering a threat response. You call it diplomacy. We call it what it is. Establishing dominance through cooperation rather than conquest. He gestured around the chamber. Look at yourselves. Every one of you depends on us now. Your economies would collapse without our trade. Your security relies on our intelligence. Your populations trust us more than they trust you. We didn't conquer you with weapons. We conquered you with friendship. Thexeral's hands shook with anger. Why, if you're so powerful, why pretend? Why not just take control openly? Hyunwoo's expression softened slightly. Because we learned from our own history. Military conquest creates resistance. Economic exploitation creates resentment. But genuine seeming friendship? That creates loyalty. People who never realize they never had a choice don't fight back. He sat back down, suddenly looking tired. The Torvans were a threat. Our analysis showed they would eventually challenge us militarily. So we removed them. Not with armies, but with information and influence. We identified their weaknesses, exploited their divisions, and guided their collapse. They destroyed themselves. We just helped them along. 3 years, he said. That's how long it took to dismantle a civilization that had existed for thousands of years. And nobody suspected us because we were too busy helping. Too busy being friends, too busy earning trust. A Kresh delegate spoke up, her voice trembling. What about the rest of us? Are we next? Next? Hyunwoo shook his head. You misunderstand. You're already done. The game ended before you knew it started. Every species in this room has been integrated into humanity's sphere of influence. Some more than others, but all enough that acting against us would hurt you more than it hurts us. He leaned forward. Test it if you don't believe me. Try to remove human technology from your military. Try to replace human traders in your economy. Try to convince your populations that we're the enemy. You'll find that we're woven into every part of your civilization now, like a vine that looks decorative until you realize it's holding up your walls. The truth of his words sank in slowly. Delegates whispered to each other, running calculations, checking data on hidden devices. One by one, their faces showed the same realization. Hyunwoo was right. They couldn't remove humanity without destroying themselves. Thexrel sat down heavily. So that's it? We're trapped? We have no choice but to accept human dominance? You have choices, Hyunwoo said. But yes, all of them involve accepting the current reality. However, I want to be clear about something. We're not conquerors. We don't want slaves or subjects. We want partners. Prosperous, peaceful, independent partners who happen to exist in a system where humanity provides stability. He stood again, his voice becoming stronger. Look at the former Torvan territories. They're peaceful now. Crime has dropped. Infrastructure has improved. People are happy. We removed a violent, aggressive civilization and replaced it with stable, democratic governments. The galaxy is better for it. You're not conquerors, a luminary delegate said bitterly. You're gardeners, pruning what you don't like and cultivating what you do. Exactly, Hyunwoo agreed without shame. And gardens thrive under proper care. We're offering you prosperity and peace under our guidance. Or you can try to fight us and watch your civilizations collapse the way the Torvans did. Those are your options. That's not a choice, Thexerl said. That's a threat dressed up as diplomacy. Hyunwoo smiled, and for a moment his old warmth returned. Now you're understanding. That's exactly what it is. That's what it's always been. We're just not hiding it anymore. He looked around the chamber at all the shocked, angry, frightened faces. Tomorrow I'll submit a proposal to formalize the existing power structure. The Galactic Council will continue to function, but with humanity in a leadership role. You'll maintain your autonomy over internal affairs. Your cultures will be protected. Your economies will be supported. All we ask is that you acknowledge what already exists. And if we refuse? Someone asked. Hyunwoo's expression didn't change. Then we'll be very disappointed. And you'll discover that disappointment from humanity is something you really don't want to experience. The meeting ended in silence. Delegates filed out slowly, each lost in their own thoughts. Thexerl was the last to leave. He paused at the door and looked back at Hyunwoo. Were we ever really friends? He asked quietly. Hyunwoo met his eyes. Yes, I genuinely like you, Thexerl. I enjoy our conversations. I respect your intelligence. That was never fake. But liking someone doesn't mean you can't manipulate them. If anything, it makes it easier. Thexerl left without another word. Behind him, Hyunwoo sat alone in the empty chamber, the mask finally removed, waiting to see what choice the galaxy would make. The vote took 3 days. Each species needed time to consult with their home governments, to run economic models, to calculate what would happen if they refused humanity's proposal. Councillor Thexerl spent those days trying to build a coalition of resistance. He talked to every delegate he could find, but everywhere he went he got the same response. The luminary couldn't risk losing human research funding. Their entire scientific establishment would collapse. The creche transportation industry was completely integrated with human logistics networks. The Velkarn military had replaced so many systems with human technology that their defense would be crippled for years if those connections were severed. Even the peaceful species, the ones who had never threatened anyone, found themselves trapped. Their medical facilities used human equipment. Their schools taught curriculum developed with human advisors. Their young people consumed human entertainment and adopted human values. The cultural influence alone would take generations to undo. It's not just economics, one elderly delegate told Thexerl. My grandson wants to study on Earth. My daughter's business partner is human. Half the people I know think humans are the best thing that ever happened to the galaxy. If I vote against them, my own people will call me a traitor. Thexerl realized the horrible genius of what humanity had done. They hadn't just made the galaxy dependent on them economically. They had made it so that resisting them seemed wrong, backward, ungrateful. They had turned themselves into heroes in a story they had written from the beginning. On the morning of the vote, Ambassador Hyunwoo presented his formal proposal. The Galactic Council would continue to exist. Each species would maintain sovereignty over internal affairs. But a new position would be created, Galactic Coordinator. This coordinator would oversee trade, security, and diplomatic relations. They would have the power to suggest policies and arbitrate disputes, and the first coordinator would be human. This formalizes what already exists, Hyunwoo explained to the assembled council. His tone was friendly again, but now everyone could hear the steel underneath. Humanity already coordinates most interstellar trade. We already provide security intelligence to most of you. We already mediate your disputes. This just makes it official. In exchange, he continued, we guarantee protection for all council members. We promise to maintain economic stability. We commit to respecting your cultures and traditions. You'll find that life under this system is actually quite comfortable. The vote began. One by one, delegates announced their position. The Luminari voted yes. The Kresh voted yes. Species after species accepted the new order, some with obvious reluctance, others with surprising enthusiasm. Finally, only Thexrel remained. Everyone turned to look at him. He sat in his seat, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. He could vote no. It wouldn't change anything. The proposal would pass anyway, but at least he could say he stood against it. But what would happen then? Would humanity make an example of the Velkarn? Would they turn their invisible machinery against his people the way they had against the Torvans? His species hadn't done anything wrong, but neither had most of the Torvans. That hadn't saved them. Thexrel looked at Hyunwoo. The human ambassador watched him calmly with what looked like genuine sympathy. There was no threat in his expression. He didn't need to threaten. They both knew the reality. The Velkarn vote, yes, Thexrel said quietly. The chamber erupted in relieved conversation. The proposal had passed unanimously. Delegates congratulated each other on choosing peace and stability. Some even seemed happy about it, convinced they had made the right choice. Hyunwoo walked over to Thexrel and extended his hand. Thank you, Counselor. I know this wasn't easy for you, but you made the wise choice, and I want you to know that I genuinely consider you a friend. That was never a lie. Thexrel shook the offered hand. It felt like shaking hands with destiny itself. Inevitable, inescapable. Will you at least be honest with me about one thing? He asked. If I can. Did you plan this from the very beginning, before you even joined the council? Hyunwoo smiled. We plan everything, Thexrel. That's what makes us different. But to answer your real question, we didn't plan to dominate the galaxy. We planned to survive in it. Domination is just what survival looks like when you're good at it. 5 years passed. The transition to the new order was surprisingly smooth. Wars that had threatened to erupt simply didn't happen. Trade flourished under human coordination. Technology advanced rapidly through collaborative research programs that humanity managed and funded. Ambassador Hyunwoo, now Galactic Coordinator Hyunwoo, oversaw it all with the same friendly efficiency he had always shown. He gave speeches about unity and cooperation. He mediated disputes fairly. He made sure every species felt heard and valued. Under his leadership, the galaxy genuinely prospered. Young aliens studied human history in schools. They learned about Earth's violent past and how humanity had overcome it. They read stories about human persistence hunters who would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. They watched documentaries about human political manipulation and psychological warfare, and they came away with a strange respect for these predators who had learned to hunt with kindness. A popular entertainment program was called Predator Species. It examined how humanity's evolutionary history shaped their diplomatic strategies. The host argued that the galaxy needed a predator at the top to maintain order. Without someone willing to make hard decisions and remove threats, chaos would return. The program was controversial, but it was also widely watched. Some species protested that it glorified manipulation. Others argued it was simply acknowledging reality. Either way, it represented a shift in how the galaxy viewed humanity. They were no longer seen as friendly neighbors. They were seen as necessary rulers. On the 5-year anniversary of the new council structure, a grand ceremony was held. Coordinator Hyunwoo gave a speech to representatives from every species. He talked about the progress they had made together. He praised the wisdom of choosing cooperation over conflict. He promised that humanity would continue to guide the galaxy toward peace and prosperity. The assembled delegates applauded enthusiastically. Most of them had come to accept the new reality. Some even believed it had been their idea. Only a few, like Thexrel, remembered how they had gotten here. Thexrel sat in the audience watching Hyunwoo's performance. He had to admit the human was good at this. His words were inspiring, his vision was compelling, and the results were undeniable. The galaxy was more peaceful now than it had been in centuries. As Hyunwoo spoke, his eyes scanned the crowd. For just a moment they met Thexrel's and Hyunwoo Wing. We won, the Wink said. We always win, but you'll be happier if you don't think about it too much. Thexrel found himself smiling slightly. It was a bitter smile, but it was also accepting. Because Hyunwoo was right. Life under human leadership was comfortable. The galaxy was stable. His people were prosperous. The price was just knowing that none of it had ever really been their choice. After the ceremony, Thexral stood on an observation deck looking out at the stars. A young Velkarn officer approached him. She had been born after the new order was established. To her, human leadership was normal. "Counselor," she said respectfully, "my history teacher said you were there when it all changed." "What was it like?" Thexral thought about his ants like waking up and discovering you'd been dreaming. "Except you couldn't remember falling asleep." The young officer looked confused. "I don't understand." "That's probably for the best," Thexral said gently. "Tell me, are you happy with how things are?" "Yes, sir. I think humans are amazing. They've done so much good for everyone." Thexral nodded slowly. "Then that's what matters." He looked back at the stars, thinking about what humanity had accomplished. They had conquered the galaxy without firing a shot. They had made prey feel grateful to their predator. They had turned dominance into friendship so convincing that even the dominated believed it was real. In a way, it was beautiful. Terrifying, but beautiful. Humanity had taken the brutal lessons of their death world and refined them into an art form. They hadn't just survived their violent past. They had mastered it, controlled it, and turned it into a tool for creating the exact outcome they wanted. The galaxy thought it had welcomed a new friend. It had actually invited in its apex predator, and by the time anyone realized the truth, the predator was already so deeply embedded that removing it would mean destroying themselves. Humanity's greatest achievement wasn't reaching the stars. It wasn't developing advanced technology. It wasn't even conquering other species. Their greatest achievement was making their prey love them for it. And as Thexral watched ships come and go from Viridian Prime Station, all of them following routes approved by human coordinators, carrying goods processed by human systems, crewed by beings who had learned to trust humanity completely, he understood something profound. The hunt had never ended. It had just become so subtle, so gentle, so wrapped in kindness and cooperation that the prey never realized they were being eaten. They just felt grateful for the attention. And perhaps, Thexral thought as he turned away from the window, that was the most human thing of all.